Welcome back to Burn the Ship, the podcast we connect entrepreneurs, professionals to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Ezra Brown, and without further ado, I'm allow my guest to introduce himself.
Hey there, folks. I'm Steve Yoder. Um, Live in Wisconsin. I'm a single guy now. I'm 68 years old and just starting my fourth enterprise.
That's awesome, Steve. All right, so four enterprises, you've got a lot of knowledge to pass to us and kind of shed some light on what it's like to run and operate a successful business. And maybe you've had some endeavors that weren't so successful. I don't know. I want to dig in your story, kind of hear from you, what that journey's been like for you and how you became Steve Yoder with and onto your fourth enterprise.
You're right. Where do
So,
you want me to start?
just kind of give us that baseline of what kind of got you to entrepreneurship, and kind of how you knew that you could do that.
Oh, I guess I knew that pretty early on in my life. I've always been creative, a logical thinker. I had blue collar parents that worked their butts off all their lives and always loved their kids and always encouraged us to go out and do things on our own. I was building things when I was 8, 9 years old. 10 years old, hydroplanes, motorcycles, mini bikes, go-karts. Uh, Even when I was 8, 9, 10 years old.
Right.
Um, as I grew up, mom and dad became more affluent in their lives. And dad was a railroader. Mom was a housewife until she's about 35 years old, went to school, graduated summa cum laude. Um, Great parents. Dad's 90, mom just died 2 years ago. They were divorced the last 15 years, but they always taught us to get up and go out and do things and think for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my first real job was working for a crazy crop duster. I did that for about 4 years. He taught me how to fly and worked my butt off for him. It's kind of like a race car pit crew when you're working for a crop dusting outfit.
Uh-huh.
Got my pilot's license when I was 16. I was flying back and forth to home with skis on my plane. Um, just had a blast with them. But I saw four friends of mine get killed crop dusting. Thought something should probably do something different.
Right.
With my dad being a railroader, so I said, "All right, Dad, I want to be an engineer." He said, "No, you don't. You want to be a signalman." Signalmen never get laid off, he said. So I joined the railroad, Chicago Northwestern Railroad, in 1976, I think it was,
Uh-huh.
and worked for them for about 6 months. I got laid off. Went and spent 3 years in the Army. Had a blast. Came back out of the Army, went back into the Chicago Northwestern Railroad, and worked my way up in the Union, Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen,
Uh-huh.
building flashing light signals at grade crossings, road crossings, and gates, and then train control systems. In those days, it's mostly pole line work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they did things at a very, very slow rate. And
Right.
learned pretty early that I could do a lot faster than them.
Uh-huh.
So I worked for the railroad for 8 years and started my own business officially in 1986. I worked 3 years on my own as a sideline, maintaining signals at night. Got my first contract early on with the Wisconsin to Calumet Railroad. Didn't have any money, didn't have anything but a pickup truck and a shovel, my vacation pay.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave the Chicago West Pullman Corporation, which was the owner of the Wisconsin Calumet Railroad, 50% of my company. And they gave me a $40,000 credit line and a $250,000 bond I needed for a project that I developed for them.
Mm-hmm.
That got me going, but it also got me contracts. They had at that time 6 other railroads, so I got to do all their maintenance contracts for them and all the construction work for them.
Which is awesome.
And that got me going. And in those days, railroads there was 27 big railroads and no small railroads.
Right.
But the industry went through what was called the Staggers Act, and it freed the railroads up to get rid of non-profitable lines.
Mm.
So the industry was selling short line railroads all over the country. Um, some millionaire would have a extra $1 million, you'd buy 100 miles of railroad here or 200 miles there or maybe 600 miles.
Hmm.
And they didn't know how to take care of their signal systems. So I said, hell, I'll do that on a fixed fee basis. Wouldn't make any money on the maintenance, but I'd make money on the construction because I'd lock in the construction work.
Right.
And the railroads love that. I go out and do safety assessments on railroads and look at all their crossings, what kind of condition they were in, what kind of hazardous condition they were in for rail or for highway crossing for cars and trucks. And I go back to the various states and say, I need funding for these 35 crossings or these 50 crossings or these 20 crossings. And the state would say, by God, we agree with you.
Right.
And they give me $1 million or $2 million or $6 million in case of California. And they give me a year to do it. So it was real good and flexible. It was all cost plus fixed fee contracting.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very little risk. And within about 3 years, I probably had 5,000 miles of railroad maintenance contracts and construction work. I had
That's
brought a new
incredible.
part.
That's
Pardon?
I said that's incredible. That's super niche to kind of get into the signal maintenance business and building them. You know, and I guess being around the railroad, you saw a need for that. So it's kind of one of those problems. You know, that's what they say. The best business is solving a problem for people.
Yep, absolutely.
That's
And
incredible.
if you can reduce their risk at no cost to them,
Mm-hmm.
railroads all are self-insured,
Uh-huh.
so they're horribly afraid of risk.
Ah,
And that's where a lot of their risk is at, grade crossing, cars and trains.
right.
And they get sued. And I said, I'll take on that risk. When I first started, I didn't have any insurance, but by the third or fourth year, I could get pretty good insurance. So it just kept growing. I got into train control systems, building stop and go lights for trains. Um, Took on a new partner who bought out the first partner. I took him on in 91. Ron Carn, just the greatest guy on earth,
Mm-hmm.
had an MBA and very smart guy, knew business inside and out. I taught myself how to read income statements and balance sheets, but this guy was at the next level, just a great guy to work with.
Right.
And we were a great team together and kept growing the company, got into bigger jobs, you know, 10, $20 million jobs. We had one job for $54 million. Um, by, by about 1996, by 96, I'd been in business for 10 years with a 44% annualized growth rate.
That's incredible.
So at that rate, sucking up cash, you know, I got to pay my suppliers in 30 days and my customer pays 45 days or 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
I was always looking for capital. So in 1996, I went to ABC Rail Corporation in Chicago, Illinois. It was a Wall Street darling in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And very cool company. Don Gardner, Don Grinter, Don McDonald, Don Grinter. And I said, you know, I'm looking for some investment cash to help grow my company. And I said, well, no, we want to buy you. And the owner, Don Grinter, told me that, well, we're trading at 24 times earnings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be an accretive deal. I said, that's fine. I'll sell you my company for 23 times earnings.
Right.
And he said, okay. I had a hell of a time keeping from my face straight.
Yeah.
Went back to my board of directors, shot it past them. They said, hell yes. So at the end of 1996, we became a publicly traded company and just continued to grow. I bought 4 more companies that became part of my company, as wholly owned subsidiary of ABC Rail Products Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
My company was called American Systems Technologies, Inc.
So you just bought your competitors.
Yeah, I bought it. Well, no, we vertically integrated in this industry.
Okay.
There was all these little separate and disparate, separate entities that did different pieces of the jobs.
Okay.
But I had a small engineering staff, but I bought a big engineering company. Then I bought a transit engineering company. I bought another small construction company. Um, Continued to grow. We got up to about 300 people, and my division,
Mm-hmm.
my company, my subsidiary, wholly owned subsidiary. And then they gave me the rail products division to also operate, and that was about 500 employees. And that was in '98, I think it was when I got that division as well. Um, our biggest customers were Union Pacific Railroad in Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And in the winter of '99, 2000 and 2001, I went to both BN and UP and asked them how many turnouts they want to buy.
Uh-huh.
A turnout is just where a switch goes from one track to two tracks. You build them in a shop,
Mm-hmm.
you cut them into pieces, you put them in a gondola car, and you take them out to site. You take the old one out, put the new one in. And I'd always put those guys down for $150 million a year, each one of them,
Mm-hmm.
for turnouts. And that year they said, Steve, we're not going to buy any, none. And railroads in the past had a very cyclical economy.
Mm-hmm.
They were never really allowed to make money after the robber baron days. They heavily regulated them.
Right.
And they go through cycles where they couldn't pay their subcontractors, and their contractors would finance them.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last big cycle they went through, but it bankrupted ABC Rail Products Corporation.
I was about to say, once you start financing, that can't be too good floating all your stuff.
No, and here I am. I hold only stock. I didn't sell any of my stock, so I went down with the ship. So that was tough. But I was relatively young then. I was 42, I think it was 43, 44 when everything went to shit.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little bit of money out, and my brother-in-law in those days was a big shot with a window manufacturing company.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he has the state of Colorado has a distributor out there that he wanted me to consider buying, in a small window manufacturing company. And I said, hell yes. So I wrote a business plan, brought in a few small partners, and we started Allied Distributors. And that was 2001, September 1st, 2001. And the thought between us, my investors and myself, and Ron Karn was involved in that one too,
Mm-hmm.
was that rich people will always be building houses in the mountains.
Right.
They $5 million house has got a $400,000 window package.
Right.
In those days, Eagle Window had all the big mansions in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 days after I bought the company, we had 9/11.
Oh.
And every contractor packed their bags and left Colorado completely. Now that's bad timing.
Right.
American System Technology was great timing. Allied was terrible timing.
Right.
So we struggled quite a bit. I started with about 16 employees there. I think I got down to about 3 or 4 is all I could afford out there. And I opened another branch in Wisconsin, here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And we got taking on all the commercial jobs that Eagle Window didn't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty soon we were doing $1 million a month in Eagle Windows and commercial. And we became the biggest distributor for Eagle Window, and they were very happy with us.
Right.
And that went on for about 6 years. And then Anderson Window Company bought Eagle Window,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, well, sorry, Steve, we don't need distributors anymore. We've got our own network. So that was a hard one.
Right.
We simply just closed the doors.
Just cut ties.
Yeah. And we always had good people around us,
Right.
especially with AST and with Allied. My thoughts have always been, I'm not the smartest bulb in the chain.
Right.
I surround myself with really good people who are much brighter than I am, and I get the hell out of their way.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they see the vision and direction and the organization, and you get them all pulling in the same direction,
Mm-hmm.
they're unstoppable. And once that point happens in a company, it is phenomenal.
Right. And that's what I've heard doing this podcast. We've done 650 some odd episodes now, 670.
That's great.
From good entrepreneurs. That's what we hear is the good things they do is they hire out what they're not good at and do what they are good at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
I did that. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say, yeah, continue. I'm intrigued.
Well, I tried building furniture for a year with my son after Allied. That didn't work. I'd spend $100 on a piece of furniture, and I'd have to sell it for $5,000. But it's fun to work with my son for a year. I helped him get his business going. Mm-hmm. His company is Sign Art Studio.
Okay.
Very small at that time. I got into commercial real estate. I went to work for Apex Properties here in Madison. They had 1,000 apartments and a lot of commercial property in the Madison area.
Uh-huh.
I had 6 operating companies and 6 holding companies. I consolidated all the income statements and the balance sheets so I could see whether they're actually making money, and helped them get into commercial development in Madison, which at that time was terrible because you had to get all the neighborhoods approval before you could take your issue to the zoning commission.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, the neighborhood committees would stop virtually everything.
Right.
But by when was that? 2007, 2008, we were getting some great developments going. Finally got to the point where we'd start looking for financing in 2009. The dot-com bubble, I'm sorry, the real estate bubble just collapsed.
Right.
And you couldn't get money from anybody. They had downsized, they couldn't afford me anymore. So then I guess I started another railroad business.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I didn't have any money, so I found a local partner who was a utility contractor here. And I knew him a little bit and wrote a business plan, my own perspective, shot it off to 5 different companies. This company said, yes, we want to do this. We want to get in the railroad business. It'll help us diversify. And on this round, let me back up to AST days. I became a member of the Brotherhood Railroad Signalmen, or my employees did.
Okay.
First time a contractor had ever had a union agreement in the railroad industry. Railroad unions can't even say the word contractor. They go into convulsions. They hate contractors. So I got to be friends with the president of the union. It took me 5 years of negotiating. He finally agreed to represent us. And the idea then is what has always been is I would never go after their work. All the Class 1 railroad work is done by union members. But I'd bring them into transit and short line railroads and commuter railroads. Had a great relationship with them. The second time around in the railroad business, it's called United Railway Signaling. And my partnership with the local company, I decided to take that to one step further. We would become a railroad ourselves.
Right.
To become a railroad, you have to own a piece of property or lease a piece of property that is controlled by an individual or corporation that controls that property. He says what has to happen. His employees are railroad union employees. We're covered under the Federal Employment Labor Act versus the National Labor Relations Act, which is a whole different set of rules.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but with that, so when you're trying to own that piece of railroad, do you have or own that property? Is it the property around the railroad or just that strip of rail?
Just a strip of rail.
Okay.
Well, and usually there's a right of way. You might have a 50-foot right of way or 100-foot right of way.
Okay.
But I just leased it from a local lumberyard. So my railroad, it's probably the last railroad created in the state of Wisconsin. It was called Madison Terminal Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
It was 150 feet of railroad in a lumberyard. It hadn't been used in forever. But then you apply to the Surface Transportation Board. You go through a whole bunch of different boards and you apply to become a railroad. And as long as you're acting in the interest of commerce, they grant you that authority to become a railroad. Mm-hmm. So I became a railroad. Then I went back to the union and I told them I would become a railroad and become a member if they would agree to allow me to work on Class 1 railroads. And the president of the union and all the board member, they invited me out to Shenandoah Valley and had a big party. And after the party, they went upstairs, took a vote, came back down and said, we're going to grant you this. And it was a big party. At that time, Dan Pickett was the president, longtime president of the union. And he said, Yoder, you're the only effing Republican I've ever liked.
You buttered him up with the party first, too.
Yeah. He was probably the most powerful man on the railroad.
That's awesome.
If somebody's striking a railroad And if you convince the BR, well, if one of our railroad union strikes, all unions strike.
Mm-hmm.
But with railroad signaling, every crossing, every train control system has to be checked at least once a month, and railroad just can't outsource that. So he's a very powerful guy, and we became very good friends. So I got United Signal going finally. It took about a year and a half to put that together.
Right.
And then we started working for the Burlington Northern Santa Fe and just had a blast. I'd finally gotten to the point of profitability after about the fourth year. And my partners decided they didn't want to be in the railroad business anymore.
Crazy.
So it wasn't my choice. Um, I certainly would have stayed on. So after that, I helped my son grow his company, Sign Our Studio. At that time, he had 3 employees.
Uh-huh.
And in 2017, he built, if anybody's ever been to downtown Madison, State Street, there's a pretty iconic sign there. It's called the Orpheum Theater sign.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get to Madison, check it out. It's very iconic. Everybody wants their picture taken under it. He built that in a 1,500 square foot shop. And when he got it done, I took a day off from work and got in a basket up there 100 and some feet in the air and put it together for him. I got to talk with my son and said, Daniel, once you build this company, you can do anything you want. So when United Signal died, I decided to help my son grow his company.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a pain in the ass.
Right.
Your kids don't like to have dad handing direction to them.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it's their car that you're telling them how to drive.
Oh yeah. He was very pig-headed. He'd say "F you, Dad," and then 6 months later, come back and say, "Let's talk about that."
Yeah, right. Yeah, like you might have been right.
Yeah,
You might have been right that whole time. It's like you haven't. It's like you hadn't already had 3 business endeavors before this that you've started
yeah,
and grown
yeah.
yourself. But getting through there and then kind of walk us through where you're at now. What life looks like for you right now.
It was tough. I left Sign Art Studio on July 4th, 2023. Daniel and I had a difference of opinion on a pretty crucial issue, I thought. But there can only be one boss to a company, so I decided to retire. And I did have a lot of money left,
Mm-hmm.
with the failure of AST. But I had a little bit of money, and I couldn't retire. I just couldn't do it. The rocking chair wasn't for me. I bought a camera. I was going to take photography. That's not going to do it. So I just got to looking around, and I had a list of about 10 different enterprises I was thinking I have thought about over the years. And I went through those, logically walked through each business plan, eliminated every one of them. And then I started looking at franchises, and I found a broker who he's connected with all the different franchises.
Uh-huh.
So I spent about an hour on the phone with him, and he analyzed me and he came back with 3 suggestions, and one of which I liked. Had a very low entry barrier financially, and I talked to the company. It was CoolVu,
Mm-hmm.
a window film uh, franchisee, and there was no window film franchisees in the country. And I got to talk with the ownership of CoolVu, and I liked the business plan. They had a nice CRM system, they had a nice estimating system,
Mm-hmm.
good product line. Um, Looked like a pretty easy thing to get into. Not a lot of capital up front,
Right.
but a good plan. I got to actually go down there and meet with all the owners.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of the early days of AST. They were in the basement of a strip mall, but all good people, hardworking.
Right.
Uh, they loved what they were doing. They loved the idea of the franchisee. So I said, hell with it. And now I'm selling solar films, decorative films, switchable films, um, graphics. First year sucked. Well, I was only in business for 7 months. I started last May.
Mm-hmm.
This year I should probably do, I don't know, 150,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah. and gross margin 50 to 60%. So
And with that, is that like that solar film? It's for windows, things like that, correct?
yeah, yeah. I don't do vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do trailers, sides of a van or something like that. But mostly solar films. I've done some switchable glass.
Mm-hmm.
It's opaque 1 second, then it's translucent the next second.
Yeah.
You Um, I got in finally with the University of Wisconsin Health System.
Mm-hmm.
They have 52 locations. Now I do all their window film. Um, Ironically, last September, I was trying to drum up more business. Um, CoolVu suggests I use Angie's List and TintWiz, which is from them.
Mm-hmm.
That I get all this business from Angie's and from TintWiz, and it didn't really play out that way. So I had to develop my own. So I did a flyer,
Mm-hmm.
and I went through it, put it together with CoolVu and a flyer company, bought the database for $1,200 million homes in Madison, and proofed everything, sent it out. And the night before I sent it out, I was talking to somebody on the phone. I said, "Yeah, calling back at 620 or 608-620-1062." And he says, "Steve, that's not your number." I said, "Oh my God, I just sent out all those flyers with the wrong damn phone number on it."
Oh,
$700 screw up.
right.
So, so I called the number on the flyer. I called him a couple times. He finally called me back and explained what happened. I said, "I'm so sorry. You may be getting some phone calls. I apologize so much." And one of my ideal customers, my business plan was always property management companies, developers,
Mm-hmm.
for their turnover on a commercial space.
Absolutely,
They
yeah.
always want, yeah, they want decorative
And,
film.
and they have the control on it.
Yeah. And so I got two phone calls from this guy with the wrong phone number. He called me back the next day, said, "Yeah, I've got two phone numbers for you." And one of them turned out to be the chairman of the board of Urban Land Interest here in Madison, which holds 80% of the Class A office space in Madison.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted window film on his patio doors at his home. I said, "Yeah, cripes, I've almost given those to you."
Right.
So I installed film on it, and I said, "Please consider letting me do some window film for it." And about a month later, I was getting leads from them, and now I get a lot of work from UW Health and contracting companies. And when I was in the commercial property business, and then also with my son's business, I got to meet a lot of contractors, a lot of builders, a lot of developers, a lot of property management companies.
Mm-hmm.
So those personal relationships are always the most important,
Right.
and it's all about making and keeping promises. And I've always done that. I'll follow my sword whenever I need to. I screwed up a job for Rosen Kia
Mm-hmm.
uh, through a local contractor here. Put the film in the wrong spot. Called back the next day, said, "I'm sorry, I got to go back there and take it all down. We got to put it up again at the right spot." Uh, he felt bad about it, but it's my fault. So I won't make any money on that job, but
Right.
so far so good.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, through having multiple different avenues of being an entrepreneur and different businesses, what would you say to the person watching that's, on that fence about starting? What would you say to help them? Like some things that you've done well through starting business?
Um, I guess it's just pigheadedness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've always tried to be into something different in the railroad business in particular. Um, Try to set new standards, get out in front of your competitors. Don't say no for an answer. Do it when you're young
Mm-hmm.
or old, doesn't matter.
Right.
And always deliver on your promises. Surround yourself with great people and get the hell out of their way. Show them what the vision is.
Absolutely.
And it makes so much difference. And it's just great. When I got to that point with AST, I could travel with my family. We saw every monument or every national park. We traveled a lot. And I never had to worry
Right.
because there was always great people out there. They loved me. I loved them. Um, it was funny. I was at a project where I gave a 10-man crew 3 crossings to put in up in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up there the last day of the project, and they were just finishing up. Everybody said, "This is impossible." I said, "No, you guys can do it." And we're sitting in a hotel room drinking beer, and there was a new employee up there, and somehow the president's name came up, and it was me. And the guy says to me, this newer employee says, "Well, who is this effing president?" And the guy said, "He's sitting right next to you."
That's awesome.
for for Christmas that year, I got a brand new Carhartt coat with my name logo and the logo was embroidered in it. It was a TFP.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome.
That was from my employees.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And then, kind of, what was something that if you could go back, to the start of getting into entrepreneurship, what would you go back and do a little different? What was something that you didn't do so well? Or just looking back on endeavors, like while you've been in the middle of it, what are some things that you would, we don't like to live with regret, but what are some of the things that you could share that you would do a little differently? Maybe something you haven't done so well through all of your endeavors.
I guess it was very disappointing, of course, when AST went down with ABC Rail.
Yeah.
I did sell that company to Balfour Beatty before they went down, so it continued to exist. And I guess in hindsight, I probably should have stayed on with Balfour Beatty and continued to grow the company. I should have stayed in the railroad industry. That's what I knew the best.
Right.
And that's what I had the most enjoyment on. And I would have liked to have had a legacy. It lasted a long time.
Right.
That's probably my biggest regret. Otherwise, I don't really have regrets.
That's awesome.
I try to, every morning I wake up and say, thank you, God, for all the world's opportunities.
Absolutely.
As you start to get older, you think a little bit longer about those new opportunities.
Most definitely.
You're closer to the end than the beginning, and you're running on finite funds. So my hopes now is that at some point here in the next 2-3 years, I can have somebody come in here to this company. I'll give them half the company, and at some point 3/4 of the company, and just clip coupons the rest of my life.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. Because that was because that kind of segued my next question is, what do you want to do with your time, Steven? What does that look like for you whenever you get fully free? What do you want to be able to do with your time? Is that travel? Is that ride a bike?
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Yeah, I'd like to do a little traveling. I've been to a lot of places already in the railroad business. I was in Bulgaria, Indonesia, Mexico all the time, Japan, but never on pleasure trips on international travel. It was always work trips.
Right.
I'm planning on going to Sicily this April. I'd like to see more of the world. I'd like to have another woman in my life. I'm currently single, have been since the pandemic. But I want to be on my feet in a good solid position before I bring on somebody else into my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
God willing.
Yeah.
God willing. Huh?
But I'd say, I meet entrepreneurs all the time, not all the time, but a lot. And I congratulate the shit out of them. When I see these young people starting new businesses, I just tell them, go out there, bust your butt. Don't take no for an answer.
Right.
And I got to meet a lot of those in the sign business too. Everybody's starting businesses, putting up their new signs. And that's, I guess, the most gratifying piece, though, really, Ezra, is I've got a lot of old employees in the railroad business. I still keep in touch with a few of them.
Right.
But they're now running their same business, the same type of business as I created back in the 70s and 80s. And a lot of guys that work for me are now, full-blown engineers and consultants and people who continue to this day, making changes in the railroad industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the railroad industry is historically, they hate change, but I did a lot to change that.
Absolutely. That is awesome though, but you got to be that change sometimes. And the last thing I have for you is, you've done it a couple times, is what was it like for you to burn the ship? That's the name of the podcast, but what was it like for you to burn the ship and go all in on a business? And you've done it a couple times.
Well, the first time, 26 years old, less than that. Yeah, that's 26 when I actually quit my job. It felt great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mom and dad said, shit, you just bought a brand new house, Steve. How can you afford to do this? It's like, I can. I know I can do it.
Right.
But that was when I burned the bridge. Um, and that felt great. And I just skyrocketed from there. And it continued to grow my confidence. Probably too overly confident. And I probably should have sold half my stock when everybody told me to, but I didn't. I figured I'd take the stock from $24 a share to $250, then I'll sell it.
Right.
But I should have been a little more conservative in some aspects of my life, but I've always been very optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I'll continue to be an optimistic individual. But yeah, I'd like to slow down a little bit going forward. I don't like being on ladders anymore. I don't mind it, but I still do.
Right.
I still like hanging a little window film, but mostly I subcontract that out now. So I'm enjoying it. Get lots of referrals, lots of business, but I'm burning the ship on CoolVu. One of the last toys I had was a brand new TRX. That's 705 horsepower, a Dodge Ram truck. I sold that fun CoolVu. That was burning the ship.
Oh yeah, I was about to say I know that hurts. I drive a Scat Pack.
Yeah, that was a fun truck.
Oh yeah, that's my that's what I want. Once I get a house, that'll be my next purchase after a house.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's a good priority for you.
absolutely, I love my car, but I wouldn't mind a big all wheel drive truck like that.
Yeah, I've had 8 Mustangs in my life.
That's awesome. Yeah, I drive the a Charger or a Challenger Scat Pack right now. So
Oh,
one of
yeah, I've always been a Mustang man. All the classics. Yeah.
The Mustangs sound really good. My dad's just a Dodge dealer, so you know,
Oh,
yeah,
that helps.
yeah. That was how that one went. But no, Steven, I appreciate you taking the time. Tell the people where to find you.
All right, Ezra. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Absolutely, no, it was awesome. But tell the people where to find you.
All right, buddy. Oh, tell people where to find me.
Yeah,
Oh, Steve.Yoder at CoolVu, CoolVu.com.
absolutely, and we'll have that link down below. You guys go check it out if you need window film in that Madison area. Actually, Steve, do you subcontract outside of Madison or outside of Wisconsin?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
We'll pretty much go anywhere where there's not a CoolVu franchisee.
perfect. Yeah. So if you guys are looking for that window film, looking for a different style of blinds instead of putting blinds in your house, put up a little tent. So give Steven a shout. We'll put his stuff down below. And Steven, I appreciate you so much for joining us on Burn the Ship and burn the ship, my friend.
All right, Ezra. Thank you much for your time, man.
Yes, sir.